English out loud.
You know those software updates you get on your phone? The ones that pop up at just the absolute worst possible moment.
Oh, yeah. Usually right when I'm trying to, pay for something at a register.
Exactly. And they demand that you read like 70 pages of terms and conditions before you can go back to just scrolling or whatever.
The dense, completely impenetrable legal walls that, absolute no human being on earth has ever actually read. Yes.
Yeah.
I am intimately familiar with them.
Right. You just furiously scroll to the bottom, blindly hit, I agree, and you just move on with your life. You don't read it. Apple or Google knows you aren't reading it. But everyone just kind of pretends we are engaging in this incredibly meaningful legal exchange just because it's the hurdle you have to clear to use the app.
Right. It is a strictly obligatory ritual. It's a polite fiction we all just uphold.
A polite fiction. I love that. And today we are actually looking at the conversational equivalent of those terms and conditions.
Yeah. The phrase that everyone uses.
Yep.
Is the phrase, how are you? We all agree to it. It is technically required to start an interaction, but absolutely nobody actually engages with it.
No one. It's totally empty.
So welcome to today's deep dive. We are taking a really fascinating look at the hidden mechanics of American English greetings. We've got a stack of notes and excerpts from a conversation guide. It's called English Out Loud.
Which is a great source, by the way.
It really is. And our mission today is to essentially deconstruct why how are you is actually one of the worst possible ways to start a conversation.
Yeah.
And we want to uncover the casual openers that native speakers actually use to, signal friendliness, establish boundaries, and show some actual personality.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's unpack this.
Well, I think it is a perfect mission. Because this is something native speakers do completely instinctively, right? But if you actually stop to analyze it...
Which we're doing.
Exactly. Whether you're studying the language or, honestly, if you're just a person trying to be a little less awkward as a communicator, it is incredibly bizarre.
And the source material makes a very bold claim right out of the gate here. It states that, how are you, actually signals formality or distance.
Wait, really? Formality?
It functions as a conversation killer.
Yeah.
Mostly because society treats it as a rhetorical question.
Oh, wow.
Right. It's like a question wearing the disguise of an inquiry, but it doesn't actually want an answer.
Which feels so counterintuitive. If you ask a question, the fundamental rule of human language is that you expect an answer.
You'd think so, yeah.
But think about it. You walk up to a coworker in the break room, you say, how are you? They say, fine, thanks. And
Yeah.
boom.
Dead end.
Dead end. The air gets instantly stale. The conversation is literally over before it even started.
Exactly. And to understand why it is a dead end, we have to look at the cultural context that the source actually provides. The guide points out that in American English, these default greetings are what sociologists and linguists call performative.
Okay, performative. And when we say performative, we aren't talking about like putting on a Broadway show here.
Yeah. No. In linguistics, a performative utterance is an action or a phrase done for social purposes rather than, literal truth.
Right.
It is a social ritual. You are performing the act of greeting someone to acknowledge their existence, to prove you see them, and to establish a sort of baseline of peace.
Okay, that makes sense.
You're essentially just pinging the network to make sure the connection is live.
Yeah.
You are absolutely not initiating an exchange of factual data about their current, emotional, spiritual, or physical state.
Wait, I actually need to push back on this a little bit, because if you value authenticity, or if you're someone who really tries to be genuine in your interactions, this feels incredibly strange. So if you're having an absolutely terrible Tuesday.
Like worst day of your life.
Yeah. You spilled coffee on your laptop, your car broke down, you were just exhausted, and someone says, how are you? You're saying you just need to accept that saying I'm good isn't a lie, it's just a social game.
That is precisely what it is. And it is a crucial mental hurdle to get over, honestly. It is completely fine and actually culturally required in a lot of spaces for a profoundly tired, stressed out person to just smile and say, pretty good.
Wow.
It isn't a lie. It's participating in the social contract. Think of it like a handshake. If someone extends their hand to shake yours and instead you grab their hand and check their pulse.
Okay, that's hilarious.
It completely misunderstood the assignment.
That is a wild mental image, checking their pulse, but it makes perfect sense.
Right. If you answer, how are you? Yeah. With like a 10-minute breakdown of your financial anxieties and your lower back pain, you haven't been honest.
You've just made everyone uncomfortable.
Exactly. You've actually broken the social rules of the performative greeting. You've brought massive, heavy baggage into a space specifically reserved for a light, frictionless social interaction.
Okay, wow. That frame of reference changes everything for me. So, before we can look at what we should say to build better connections, we really have to unlearn this default, robotic, how are you setting?
Absolutely. We have to throw it out.
Because if how are you is this sterile, frictionless dead end, what do we actually say to the people we genuinely want to talk to? Let's start with the inner circle.
The people whose pulse you might actually want to check?
Yes,
Yeah.
your friends, your close colleagues.
So this is where we see a really dramatic shift. When you are dealing with people you are close to, the rigid, how are you, completely vanishes.
Thank goodness.
It gets replaced by phrases that actually invite connection, or at least, reflect a shared comfort level.
The first one that jumps out from the material is probably the most ubiquitous one out there. What's up?
Oh yeah, classic.
I mean, if I walk into my best friend's house, I never say, how are you doing today? I just say, what's up?
And what's fascinating about what's up is how completely empty it is as a literal question, which is exactly what makes it so useful.
Empty how?
Well, it sounds like a question about what events are occurring in your life right now, but it isn't. It is just a warm, verbal acknowledgement. The guide notes you can literally reply to what's up by saying what's up right back.
Oh, that's so true.
You exchange the exact same phrase, and the transaction is flawlessly complete.
Or you give the standard non-answers, right? Like, not much, you, or same old. It
Right.
really is just a conversational high five as you pass someone in the hall.
A conversational high five. I love that.
It's quick, it's easy, it requires zero emotional processing. But I noticed the source also flags a variation of this that changes the energy entirely. What's good?
Yes. And this is a beautiful example of language evolving to capture different emotional registers. What's good operates mechanically exactly like what's up.
But the vibe is completely different.
Totally different. The notes highlight that it's primarily used by Gen Z and younger speakers, and it carries a significantly higher, more positive energy. You wouldn't use what's good at a somber event.
No, definitely not. And the responses to it are totally different too. If someone asks, what's good? You don't say, not much.
No, you'd sound so depressed.
Right. The source suggests responses like, everything. How about you? Or the very philosophical, just living, man.
Just living. Classic.
Which I love because it instantly sets a relaxed, optimistic tone for whatever conversation follows. But let's look at a phrase that bridges the gap a bit. How's it going? It feels a bit more universal.
It is more universal.
Yeah.
And it's mechanically superior to how are you?
How so?
Because it shifts the focus off the person's internal state, so the you,
Yeah.
and onto the external environment, the it.
Oh, how is it going?
Right. It lowers the stakes. It invites a real answer if the person wants to give one, but it absolutely doesn't demand it.
What I found really interesting in the notes about how's it going is the cadence of the ideal response. The most authentic, natural American filler response isn't just a sharp good, it's a repetition. The double phrase, pretty good, pretty good.
The double repeat, yes. This is such a subtle but vital observation about the rhythm of casual English.
Right?
Think about the acoustic difference between a single, sharp fine and pretty good, pretty good.
Fine, sound like a door slamming shut.
Exactly. It's abrupt, but
Yeah.
pretty good fills the air. It takes up a little more time. It establishes a casual bouncing rhythm, and it softens the interaction.
Yeah, it's almost musical.
It really is. It signals to the other person, I am relaxed. We are in a safe, unhurried space.
It creates a little cushion. Okay, but what about when you haven't seen someone in a while?
The rules have to change, right? Because if I haven't seen my college roommate in 6 months and I see him and say, what's up, it almost feels rude.
Like you're ignoring the massive gap in time.
Exactly.
Precisely. The social contract dictates that you must acknowledge the passage of time. The source covers these specific time gap greetings, and it gives us two main options to examine. The first is, what have you been up to?
Which clearly implies a gap of days, weeks, or even months. Right. And because it explicitly acknowledges that time gap, it forces a slightly more detailed performative response. You can't just say, not much.
Well, you could, but it'd be weird.
Yeah, you have to summarize the gap. You might say, oh, same stuff, just working. What about you? Or if you actually want to engage, actually, I moved to a new apartment. I'll tell you everything. Yeah. It is a tool designed to pry open a narrative.
But then there's the second time gap greeting in the source, and this one is fascinating. How have you been?
Yes.
The notes are very specific that this is a contraction of how have you been, but they emphasize that it sounds profoundly warmer and more interested than how's it going.
What's fascinating here is how the physical act of contracting the words changes the psychological impact of the phrase.
That's so interesting.
When you compress how have you been into how have you been, you strip away the stiff, deliberate formality. Think about the mechanics of speech, right? Contractions require you to be a bit looser with your mouth and your breath. They imply relaxation.
That's incredibly true. I mean, how have you been? It sounds like you were interrogating me at a deposition.
Right. Where were you on the night of the 4th?
Yes, but how have you been? Sounds like we are sitting on a couch with a glass of wine.
Exactly. It removes the armor.
Yeah.
You use this when reconnecting with someone you genuinely care about because it allows for a vulnerable response. It opens the door for someone to say, honestly, it's been a lot lately.
I like to think of it like this. Saying what's up is giving someone a conversational high five, but saying, how have you been? Especially if you drop your pitch and really look them in the eye, is a conversational hug. You're holding the moment just a little longer.
It is a perfect visualization of the emotional weight. The high five versus the hug.
But let's be real here. You do not want to give everyone a conversational hug.
Oh, definitely not.
Especially not at the office. I mean, if I am walking to the printer, I do not want to deeply connect with the guy from accounting. I just want my documents.
Get in and get out.
Exactly. So how do we handle that massive middle ground of acquaintances and coworkers? You need to be friendly, but you definitely need to maintain professional boundaries.
Well, the coworker zone requires an entirely different linguistic toolkit.
Yeah.
You want to avoid the freezing cold of how are you, but you must avoid the intimate warmth of how have you been.
Right.
The guide offers what we might call the ultimate transitional phrases. The first is, hey, how are things?
How are things? It is so delightfully vague.
Its vagueness is its superpower. It is entirely neutral. Things could mean the Q3 revenue report you were both working on. It could mean the department reorganization, or it could mean life in general.
It leaves it totally up to them.
It delegates the choice to the responder. They can choose the depth of their answer. They can say, things are good, busy week, you, or just, not bad, not bad.
The guide also suggests a slightly more expansive version. How's everything going? And this brings us to a really brilliant tactical analysis from the notes.
This is one of my favorite parts.
When someone asks, how's everything going? In a professional setting, there is a specific word that acts as the ultimate conversational shield. The word is hectic.
Hectic, yes.
Yes. Someone asks how things are, and you say, honestly, pretty hectic, but fine. You know how it is. Let's look at why hectic is such a brilliant tactical choice for the coworker zone. Because it's not just a synonym for busy.
No, it's highly strategic. Think about what hectic accomplishes.
Yeah.
In modern professional environments, appearing busy is often conflated with being valuable.
Sadly true.
By saying things are hectic, you are signaling productivity and importance. But more crucially, hectic implies a state of external chaos, not internal failure.
Oh, wow. That's such a good distinction.
Right. If you say, I am overwhelmed or I am stressed, you are making it deeply personal. You are inviting the other person into your emotional state, which makes them uncomfortable.
Yeah, they don't want to deal with that at the printer.
Exactly. But if you say things are hectic, you are pointing to the environment. You build instant solidarity without requiring oversharing. You're acknowledging the shared reality of the capitalist grind, but by following it up with, but fine, you maintain the performative boundary.
You aren't asking them to fix your problems. You're just nodding to the storm outside.
Precisely.
Hectic, but fine. It is the perfect armor. Now, there's one exception in this coworker section that the source highlights. A phrase that completely drops the armor. It's the phrase, you doing okay. Why is this one so fundamentally different from all the others?
Well, because it completely shatters the standard performative mold. You do not use you doing okay as a standard hallway greeting.
No, that would be weird.
It is a laser-guided empathy muscle. You deploy this only when you can intuitively tell that something is genuinely wrong.
Like a coworker looks incredibly stressed, or a friend is unusually quiet.
Exactly. Someone is staring blankly at their monitor.
So it's not a greeting, it's an intervention.
Exactly, yeah. And because it is so targeted, it gives the person explicit permission to drop the performative mask, just a fraction of an inch.
Just a little bit.
They might say, yeah, I'm fine, just tired, or yeah, just a really long day. It allows them to acknowledge this struggle without demanding a full therapy session. It says, I see that the terms and conditions aren't applying right now, and that's okay.
Okay, so we've mapped out the intimate high fives with friends, and we've navigated the hectic shields of the coworker zone. But what happens when you bump into someone completely unexpectedly?
Oh boy.
Say you are at the grocery store and you turn the corner into the produce aisle, and there's someone you haven't seen in 3 years. The adrenaline spikes. How do you survive that without the conversation immediately flatlining?
This is a classic high anxiety scenario because you have no script prepared. And this is where we see language used not as a question, but almost as an exclamation point. The guide categorizes these as observational greetings.
Right, because if you say, "How are you?" in that moment of shock, it falls completely flat. The first one the note suggests is the classic, "Long time no see," which, like you said, isn't a question at all. It's just a validation of the shock.
Right, and the response is usually just echoing the observation like, I know, right? It's been forever.
Feels very natural.
It immediately establishes the context. By verbally acknowledging that it's been a long time, you are mutually agreeing that there's a massive gap in your shared knowledge, which kind of lowers the pressure to jump right into deep facts.
The source also gives us these playful, almost theatrical phrases, "Look who it is," and the friendly teasing of, "Where have you been hiding?"
I love where have you been hiding because it functions as an incredibly subtle compliment.
It does.
It implies that their absence was actively felt. It's flattering. And it naturally leads into another fantastic tactical word from our source notes, which is slammed.
Yes. Someone asks where you've been hiding, and you reply, "Oh, I've been completely slammed with work," or "I just slammed with the kids, honestly."
And just like hectic, slammed is a very specific status marker. It's almost a humble brag.
Oh, totally.
It says, I am so vital and necessary to my job or my family that I haven't had a single moment of free time to socialize. It excuses your absence while simultaneously elevating your status.
It's brilliant. And the goal of all of this, according to the guide, is to initiate what they call a catch-up, getting up to date on someone's life. But anyone who has survived a grocery store encounter knows that successfully catching up is incredibly difficult.
Oh, it's so painful sometimes.
It is so easy for the ball to drop.
Which brings us to the absolute mechanical core of this entire deep dive. The guide calls this the art of the bounce back. We've established that saying fine, thanks, is a conversation stopper, right? It places the entire cognitive load of keeping the conversation alive back onto the other person. So what is the anatomy of a perfect response?
Well, the guide reveals a very specific 3-part formula for a natural response. If you want the conversation to actually survive the greeting, you use this pattern. Answer briefly, plus give a single detail, plus bounce it back.
Answer briefly, give a detail, bounce it back. It is simple, but incredibly powerful.
Let's actually look at how this works in practice, because the source provides a mini role play that deconstructs this perfectly.
I love this part.
The scene is 2 coworkers, Alex and Jamie, bumping into each other at the coffee machine on a Monday morning.
The quintessential high-risk scenario for the dreaded how are you dead end.
Exactly. So here is how the exchange plays out in the guide. Alex says, "Hey, how's it going?" Jamie says, "Honestly, a little rough. It's Monday, but getting there. What about you?"
Let's pause and analyze Jamie here. Jamie just perfectly executed the pattern. Brief answer, little rough. Detail, it's Monday, but getting there. Bounce back. What about you?
But here's where it gets really interesting. Listen to how Alex handles the bounce back, because this is where the magic happens. Alex says, "Pretty good. Weekend was actually great. Went hiking for the first time in forever." Jamie replies, "No way where," Alex says. "Up north. It was amazing. You should come next time." Jamie, 100%. "Okay, I need coffee first, but tell me everything."
That is an absolute masterclass in conversational mechanics.
It really is.
Let's look at what Alex did. Brief answer, pretty good. Detail,
Yeah.
went hiking for the first time in forever. By offering that specific detail hiking, Alex gave Jamie a conversational hook.
Right. Jamie didn't have to desperately scramble their brain to find a topic to ask about.
Exactly. The topic was literally handed over on a silver platter, no way where. And just like that, the awkwardness evaporates and a natural, warm conversation has successfully started. You've drastically reduced the cognitive load for the other person.
It completely reframes the interaction. You aren't just exchanging empty pleasantries, you are actively building a bridge. And of course, the notes make a crucial point to highlight that all of this is heavily dependent on the context and the medium.
Yes. The medium changes the message entirely. For example, "What's up?"
Yeah.
works flawlessly as a text message or an in-person greeting.
Sure.
But "How have you been?" our conversational hug that relies heavily on in-person dynamics. You need to see their face, hear the drop in their voice. If you text someone out of the blue, "How have you been?" it might actually trigger anxiety.
Oh my gosh, yes. It feels heavy, like bad news is coming.
Exactly.
And matching the greeting to the environment is just as vital. You use the neutral "how are things" for the colleague at the printer, but you use the high energy "what's good" for the friend you're meeting at a bar. It is all about calibrating your language to the specific relationship and the specific room.
Which really brings us back full circle to the overarching sociological point of the source material, the performative nature of human interaction. We get so hung up on greetings, especially if we are learning a new language or navigating a new social circle, because we mistakenly view greetings as an exchange of data.
But the goal of a greeting isn't to exchange data, it's to open a door.
Yes.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Whether you're trying to build better relationships, trying to navigate office politics, or just trying not to be the awkward person at the grocery store.
Well, it means you need to ditch the robotic "how are you?" By intentionally matching your greeting to the relationship, you add rich, natural texture to your conversations. You subtly signal to the other person that you understand the social nuances.
So next time you walk up to a coworker, don't trap them with a rhetorical question.
Right. Try deploying the formula. Answer briefly, give a small detail, and bounce it back. Hand them a hook.
Swap "how are you" for "how's it going?" Swap. Drop in a strategic hectic to show solidarity. Use the double pretty good to soften the air.
And above all, recognize the performative ritual for what it is. A social handshake. A ping to the network. It is not a polygraph test.
Which actually leads me to a really fascinating thought to leave you with today.
Oh, let's hear it.
We started this deep dive by comparing "how are you" to the terms and conditions on a software update. A ritual we all blindly agree to, a pleasant fiction we all uphold just to keep society moving. We just say "pretty good" and keep walking.
We fulfill the contract.
Right. But if that is our baseline, if the entire architecture of our daily interactions is built on this polite, performative distance, it leaves you wondering, what does it actually take in modern society to transition a conversation from that performative "pretty good" into a space where someone feels safe enough to tell you they actually aren't okay?
Wow.
Right. If our standard operating procedure is a frictionless fiction, is the ultimate test of true intimacy, the exact moment that performative greeting is finally broken.
It's incredibly profound.
Something to chew on the next time you ask someone how they're doing. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.